Smoke from roadside grills mixed with the exhaust of passing Okadas, creating a haze that hung over Mama Chica's eatery where 16-year-old Adora Nwachuku had been washing dishes since sunrise. Her slender arms ached as she scrubbed another pot, the metal hot to the touch from the cooking fires. 6 hours into her 12-hour shift, and the stack of dirty plates seemed to multiply rather than diminish. Still, Adora worked steadily, her movement efficient despite her exhaustion. "Faster, girl. Customers are waiting." Mama Chica barked from inside the small restaurant, a heavy-set woman with a perpetual scowl. She had taken Adora in after the girl had lost both parents to a road accident 3 years ago. Not from kindness, but for cheap labor, a fact Mama Chica never let Adora forget. "I'm almost done with this batch, Ma," Adora replied respectfully, though her stomach growled in protest. She hadn't eaten since the small portion of leftover Accra Mama had allowed her at dawn. "When you finish, sweep the front before your break," Mama Chica ordered, returning to her customers. An hour later, Adora finally reached her lunch break. Her reward for the morning's work was a plate of jollof rice. Not the fresh batch sold to customers, but yesterday's leftovers reheated. Still, it was food, and Adora was grateful. She carefully scooped her portion onto a crack plate and found a quiet spot at a wobbly table behind the eatery. She bowed her head to say a quick prayer of thanks, a habit her mother had instilled in her. "Thank you, Lord, for this food." A commotion interrupted her prayer. Near the roadside, just a few meters from where she sat, an elderly man had collapsed. He wore threadbare clothes, dusty from travel, his thin frame suggesting he hadn't eaten in days. Passers-by hurried past, too busy with their own troubles to stop. Without hesitation, Adora set down her untouched plate and rushed to the old man's side. Sir, are you all right?" she asked, kneeling beside him. Up close, his face was lined with age and hardship, but his eyes, when they opened, held a sharp intelligence that caught her by surprise. "Water," he whispered, his voice dry as the harmattan wind. Adora quickly fetched a cup of water and helped him drink. As the liquid revived him, he struggled to sit up. "Thank you, my daughter," he said, his breath steadying. "I haven't eaten in 2 days. I came to Lagos seeking my son, but I have lost my way and my strength." Adora looked at the man, then back at her plate of jollof rice sitting on the table. Her stomach protested with another growl, but her heart had already decided. "Please take my food," she said, retrieving the plate and offering it to him. "I can eat later." The old man's eyes widened. "But this is your meal. I can see you are hungry, too." Adora smiled gently. "My mother always said a shared meal tastes sweeter than a selfish feast." The old man studied her face for a moment, as if searching for something. Then, with trembling hands, he accepted the plate. "What is your name, kind one?" "Adora Nwachuku, sir." "Adora," he repeated, as if committing it to memory. "A good name. It suits you." As the man ate, Adora sat beside him, ignoring the curious glances from passers-by. She noticed details about him that seemed at odds with his ragged appearance. His straight posture, despite his apparent weakness, the careful way he handled the chip plate, the articulate speech that suggested education. "Where have you come from?" she asked. "Far away," he answered vaguely. But sometimes one must journey back to beginning to find one's way forward. Before she could ask what he meant, Mama Chica's voice cut through the air like a machete. "Adora, what do you think you're doing?" Adora stood quickly as Mama Chica approached, hands on her wide hips, disapproval darkening her face. This man was starving, Ma. He needed help. Mama Chica glared at the old man, who had finished the rice and was now attempting to stand. "So you give away food I provide for my generosity? Food you haven't earned?" She turned to the old man. "And you, old one, go beg elsewhere. This is a business, not a charity." "I apologize for any trouble," the old man said with surprising dignity. He turned to Adora and pressed something into her palm. "Thank you, child. Remember, kindness given freely always returns multiplied." Then, steadier now with food in his stomach, he walked away, disappearing into the crowd before Adora could respond. "Foolish girl," Mama Chica scolded. You feed beggars when you can barely feed yourself. Now get back to work. No more break for you today. As Adora returned to her dishes, she opened her palm to see what the old man had given her. It was just a weathered coin, so old and worn that its markings were barely visible. She tucked it into her apron pocket, touched by the gesture despite its apparent worthlessness. The afternoon passed in a blur of soap suds, scrubbing, and Mama Chica's constant criticism. By evening, when the last customer had gone and the eatery was finally clean, Adora's arms ached and her stomach had given up protesting, settling into a hollow emptiness. "Here," Mama Chica said grudgingly, handing her a small wrap of moin moin as Adora prepared to leave. "Can't have you fainting tomorrow. But next time you want to be charitable, use your own food, not mine." "Yes, Ma. Thank you," Adora said, accepting the small bean pudding gratefully. The walk to her small room in the shared compound took 20 minutes. Legos had transformed in the dusk. Streets lit by open fires and scattered electric lights, music spilling from homes and businesses, the air slightly cooler, but still heavy with humidity. In her tiny room, barely large enough for her thin mattress and a small box containing her few possessions, Adora finally sat down, exhaustion weighing on her shoulders. As she reached into her apron to retrieve the coin before changing clothes, her fingers touched something unexpected. The coin felt different, heavier, smoother. Puzzled, she pulled out and gasped. What had been a worn, unremarkable coin was now gleaming gold, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the dim light of her kerosene lamp. It pulsed with a faint glow that warmed her fingers, as if alive with some inner energy. Adora stared at it in disbelief. This couldn't be the same coin the old man had given her. Yet she had placed nothing else in that pocket all day. She turned it over, and on the reverse side was an inscription in flowing script that hadn't been there before. "To the kind heart who gives without expectation." Adora's hand trembled. Who was that old man? And what was this strange coin that now seemed to radiate life within? Outside her window, Legos continued its nighttime symphony of sounds, oblivious to miracle unfolding in a poor orphan girl's palm. But somewhere in the vast city, in a penthouse suite overlooking the lagoon, an elderly man had removed his ragged disguise, watching the city lights with thoughtful eyes, thinking of a girl who had given her only meal to a stranger. "I've found her," he whispered to himself. "After all these years, I've finally found her. Incredible. What is this mysterious glowing coin, and who is the old man Adora helped? If you believe a single act of kindness can change your destiny, smash that like button and subscribe to Africantales by Zion. Drop a comment. Would you share your only meal with a starving stranger? The next chapter reveals how this magical coin transforms Adora's life in ways she never imagined. Share this video with someone whose kindness deserves to be rewarded. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens when Adora discovers the shocking truth about the stranger she fed. Morning arrived with the persistent crowing of a neighbor's rooster. Adora woke before her alarm, her hand instinctively reaching under her thin pillow where she had hidden the strange golden coin. It was still there, still warm to the touch, still gleaming with an inner light that seemed impossible. She held it up in the early dawn light filtering through her window. The coin's glow pulsed gently, as if responding to her touch. Adora had spent half the night examining it, wondering if she should show it to someone, wondering if it held any real value, or if it was just some clever trinket the old man had given her. "I should return it," she decided aloud. "If it's valuable, it doesn't belong to me." With that resolution, she tucked the coin into the hidden pocket she had sewn into her dress. One of her mother's lessons. A woman should always have a secret place for her treasures, no matter how small. The morning routine was unchanging. Adora arrived at Mama Chica's eatery as the first light touched the metal rooftops of the market stalls. She lit the cooking fires, prepared water for the day's dishes, and began chopping vegetables before most of Legos had stirred from sleep. By mid-morning, the eatery was bustling with customers seeking breakfast. Mama Chica moved between tables, her voice alternating between warm greetings for customers and sharp orders for Adora. "Girl, more plates to the front," she called, and Adora hurried to comply, balancing a stack of clean dishes while navigating the narrow path between tables. As she passed Mama Chica, she gathered her courage. "Ma, yesterday an old man gave me something. I think it might be valuable, and I should return it." Mama Chica paused, curiosity overtaking her usual impatience. "Show me." Reluctantly, Adora reached into her hidden pocket and produced a golden coin. In the daylight, its glow was subtler but still visible, the intricate patterns shifting like water flowing over stone. Mama Chica's eyes widened. She snatched the coin from Adeora's palm, turning it over in her thick fingers. "Where did you get this? You stole it, didn't you?" "No, Ma. The old man yesterday, the one I gave my food to, he pressed it into my hand before he left." Mama Chica's expression shifted between suspicion and calculation. If that's true, then he's either a fool or a thief himself. This looks like real gold. She bit the edge of the coin, a gesture Adora had seen market traders use to test gold's authenticity. Feels genuine. "Please, Ma." Adora reached for the coin. "I need to return it." "Return it?" Mama Chica scoffed. "To a beggar? Don't be ridiculous. He probably stole it himself." "No. This will cover what you owe me for your room and board." "But, Ma." "Enough." Mama Chica silenced her with a glare. "Get back to work. This is mine now." Adora watched helplessly as Mama Chica tucked the coin into her blouse. A heaviness settled in her chest. Not from losing something potentially valuable, but from failing to honor the old man's unexpected gift. Throughout the morning, Adeora's thoughts kept returning to the coin and its strange inscription. Who gives a gold coin to a dishwasher in a roadside eatery? And why had it glowed in her hands? Just before the lunch rush, Mama Chica approached Adora with an unusual request. "Go to the market and buy more rice and palm oil. We're running low." She handed Adora a small purse of naira. "Be quick about it." At the market, Adora carefully selected the best rice she could find within Mama's budget. As she paid the rice seller, something caught her eye. A small boy, perhaps 7 or 8, sitting beside a blind woman selling peppers. The boy's thin frame and hollow cheek spoke of hunger, his tattered shirt hanging loosely on his shoulders. Without thinking, Adora used some of the remaining money to buy a meat pie from a nearby vendor. She approached the boy and his mother, offering it with a smile. "For you," she said simply. The boy's face lit up, but he looked to his mother first. The blind woman's weathered face softened. "Thank you, my daughter," she said, her unseeing eyes somehow finding Adora. "May your kindness return to you multiplied." The same words the old man had spoken. A shiver ran through Adora as she made her way back to the eatery, hurrying now to avoid Mama Chica's wrath for any delay. Upon her return, she found Mama in a state of agitation, emptying her pockets and searching under tables. "The coin," she said when she saw Adora. "It's gone. Did you take it back?" "No, Ma," Adora replied truthfully. "I've been at the market." "Lies. It was in my pocket, and now it's vanished." Mama Chica's face darkened with rage. "Empty your pockets, girl." Adora complied immediately, turning out the contents of her dress pockets, a few naira notes left from the market, a handkerchief, and the receipt from the rice seller. But as she reached into her hidden pocket, her fingers touched something warm and familiar. She froze, her heart racing. "What are you waiting for? Empty all your pockets." Slowly, Adora reached into her secret pocket and pulled out the golden coin, exactly the same one Mama Chica had taken from her hours earlier. It glowed more brightly now, pulsing in her palm like a tiny heartbeat. Mama Chica's eyes bulged. "Thief, you stole it from me." "No, Ma, I swear." But Mama Chica wasn't listening. She grabbed Adeora's wrist, her fingers digging painfully into the girl's skin. "Give it to me." The moment Mama Chica touched the coin, she yelped and pulled her hand away as if burned. The coin's glow intensified, becoming almost too bright to look at directly. "What kind of juju is this?" Mama Chica whispered, fear replacing anger in her eyes. Before Adora could respond, the eatery door opened and a group of construction workers entered, calling loudly for food. Mama Chica threw Adora one last suspicious glance before turning to her customers, her businesswoman's instincts overriding her fear for the moment. "Put that thing away," she hissed. "We'll deal with this later." Throughout the afternoon, Adora felt the coin's warmth against her side, somehow comforting despite the strangeness of its reappearance. By evening, when the last customers had gone and she was cleaning the final batch of dishes, she had decided what to do. Using some of her small savings, she bought 4 meat pies from a street vendor on her way home. The children were exactly where she expected to find them. For young ones who lived on a market bridge, orphans or runaways who survived on scraps and occasional charity. "Adora," they called when they saw her approach, their faces lighting up. She visited when she could, bringing leftovers Mama Chica would otherwise have thrown away. "I brought something special today," she said, distributing the meat pies. The children accepted them with a joy that made Adora's heart ache and soar simultaneously. As she watched them eat, she reached into her pocket to touch the coin, drawing comfort from its warmth. To her surprise, she felt not one coin but several. Confused, she pulled them out. 3 identical gold coins now rested in her palm, all glowing with the same inner light. "How?" she whispered, staring at the small fortune in her hand. One of the younger children looked up. "Pretty lights," he said, pointing at the coins. Adora quickly tucked them away, her mind racing. 1 coin had become 3. Was it because she had bought food for 3 children? The old man's words echoed in her memory. Kindness given freely always returns multiplied. The following day brought more mysteries. Adora used one of the coins to buy medicine for an elderly neighbor who had been coughing through the night. By evening, she found 2 coins in its place. She used another to pay the school fees for the blind pepper seller's son. 3 more appeared by morning. Word began to spread through the neighborhood of Adora's sudden generosity. Some whispered that she had found a spirit husband who provided for her. Others suggested she had discovered hidden treasure. Mama Chica watched with growing suspicion and envy, convinced the girl was involved in something illegal. "Where are you getting this money?" she demanded one evening, blocking Adora's path as she prepared to leave. "Are you stealing from my customers? Running errands for area boys?" "No, Ma," Adora answered truthfully. "It's a blessing that came to me, and I'm sharing it as I should." "Don't speak riddles to me, girl. No one gives something for nothing in Lagos." But the old man had, and his gift continued to multiply as Adora shared it freely, never keeping more than she needed for the next act of kindness. A week after the coin first appeared, a sleek black SUV pulled up outside Mama Chica's eatery. The customers paused their eating to stare as the driver emerged, opening the door for a distinguished-looking man in an impeccably tailored suit. He wore dark sunglasses despite the cloudy day, his movements precise and deliberate as he surveyed the modest establishment. "Welcome, sir." Mama Chica rushed forward, wiping her hands on her apron. "Please, the best table for you." The man nodded politely but seemed distracted, his attention drawn to something across the street. Adora followed his gaze and saw a large billboard being installed on a previously empty lot. Workers were unveiling an advertisement for Adeyemi's Place, a new luxury restaurant opening nearby. The distinguished man turned back to Mama Chica. "I won't be dining today. I'm here with news." His voice was cultured, authoritative. "I represent Mr. Tund Adeyemi, owner of the new establishment across the street." Mama Chica's welcoming smile faltered. Competition was the last thing her struggling eatery needed. "Mr. Adeyemi wishes to inform all local businesses that he will be hosting a special event next week. He's searching for the kindest soul in Lagos for a significant opportunity." "Kindest soul?" Mama Chica repeated skeptically. "Yes, Mr. Adeyemi believes in community investment with a purpose. The chosen individual will be invited to participate in his upcoming charitable foundation." The man handed Mama Chica an elegant envelope. Details inside. "Good day." As he turned to leave, his sunglasses slipped slightly, and Adora caught a glimpse of his eyes, sharp, intelligent, and somehow familiar. He paused at the door, his gaze sweeping over the eatery once more before landing briefly on Adora. For a moment, she thought he might speak to her. Instead, he nodded almost imperceptibly and departed. That evening, as Adora walked past the construction site of Adeyemi's Place, She paused to admire the grand entrance taking shape. The restaurant would clearly be upscale, meant for wealthy patrons rather than the market workers and drivers who frequented Mama Chica's. As she stood there, the coin in her pocket began to warm intensely. She reached for it, surprised by its heat. The moment she touched it, it began to hum, a soft, musical vibration that seemed to pull her toward the restaurant site. Confused and a little frightened, Adora stepped back. The humming subsided, but the warmth remained. What connection could there possibly be between her mysterious coin and this new luxury establishment? As she turned to leave, she noticed a small sign near the construction entrance, now hiring cleaning and kitchen staff. Perhaps, Adora thought as she continued her walk home, this was an opportunity. Mama Chica's eatery was becoming increasingly uncomfortable as the woman's suspicions and resentment grew. A new job might be exactly what she needed. What she couldn't possibly know was that the distinguished visitor had returned his luxury penthouse across Lagos, where he removed his sunglasses and suit jacket, transforming from corporate representative to billionaire restaurateur Tund Adeyemi himself. "Did you find her?" asked his assistant, looking up from a laptop. Tund smiled, the expression softening his otherwise serious face. "Yes, the search is over." He walked to the window, gazing out at the Lagos skyline as night fell over the city. "Prepare everything. It's time to repay a debt that's been 20 years in the making." Wow! The mysterious coin multiplies whenever Adora helps others. But who is this billionaire searching for the kindest soul in Lagos? Could there be a connection to the old man she fed? If this magical story of kindness rewarded has touched your heart, smash that like button and subscribe to Africantales by Zion. Drop a comment. What would you do if you found a magical coin that multiplied with each good deed? The next chapter brings Adora face to face with destiny in a way that will leave you breathless. Share this video with someone whose kindness deserves to be rewarded. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens when Adora discovers who really owns that mysterious restaurant. Next, called the tired-looking woman behind the desk, not bothering to look up from her papers. Adora stepped forward, smoothing her best dress, a simple blue cotton garment, patched in places but clean and pressed for the occasion. Around her, dozens of other hopeful applicants waited their turn, all seeking positions at the newly opened Adeyemi's place. "Name?" the woman asked, still not looking up. "Adora Nwachukwu." "Experience?" 3 years at Mama Chica's eatery in Ikeja Market. "I wash dishes, prepare ingredients, and sometimes serve customers." The woman finally glanced up, her expression suggesting she'd heard similar stories all morning. "Position sought?" "Any available position, Ma. I'm willing to learn." With a noncommittal nod, the woman handed Adora a form. "Fill this out and wait to be called for the brief interview." 2 hours later, Adora sat across from a stern-faced manager named Mr. Obi, who peered at her through wire-rimmed glasses. No formal education beyond primary school, he noted, reviewing her application. No references except your current employer, who, he glanced at some notes, seems reluctant to provide a positive recommendation. Adeora's heart sank. She had expected Mama Chica might be difficult when the restaurant called, but she had hoped her work ethic would speak for itself. "I'm a hard worker, sir," she said. "I learn quickly." Mr. Obi's expression remained neutral. "We have many applicants with more experience and better qualifications." He seemed about to dismiss her when something caught his attention, a subtle glow emanating from Adeora's pocket. The golden coin was warm against her thigh, as if responding to the moment. Unconsciously, Adora placed her hand over it, trying to conceal the light. "What is that?" Mr. Obi asked, his tone sharpening. "Nothing, sir," Adora replied quickly. "Just a token for good luck." Mr. Obi studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, he stamped her application. "Report tomorrow at 5 a.m. for training. You'll start as a cleaner. Minimum wage, 6-month probation. The uniform will be provided." He handed her an employee badge. "Don't be late." "Thank you, sir." Adora could hardly believe her luck. "I won't disappoint you." As she left the office, clutching the badge like a treasure. She failed to notice Mr. Obi pick up his phone and make a brief call. "Yes, sir." The girl with the coin. "She's been hired as requested." Adeyemi's place was unlike any restaurant Adora had ever seen. From the marble floors to the crystal chandeliers, every detail spoke of luxury. The tables were set with fine china and silver cutlery that gleamed under the soft lighting. Large windows offered views of a carefully landscaped garden where fountains played amongst tropical flowers. It was a paradise designed for Lagos elite. Politicians, business magnates, and celebrities who could afford the exorbitant prices listed on the Golden Boss menus. For Adora, assigned to the cleaning staff, this new world was both fascinating and intimidating. Her days began before dawn and ended long after sunset, scrubbing floors, polishing silverware, and ensuring that not a speck of dust marred the restaurant perfection. Despite the long hours and demanding work, Adora approached each task with diligence and care. Unlike some of her colleagues who complained about the strict standards, she found satisfaction in the transformation, turning what was dirty into something gleaming and beautiful. "You have good hands," remarked Abu, the elderly head cleaner who had been watching her polish a particularly stubborn watermark from a mirror. "Patient hands." Adora smiled, pleased by the rare compliment. "My mother taught me that anything worth doing is worth doing properly." "Your mother was wise," Abu nodded, "but wisdom is rare in this place. Be careful, young one. Not all that glitters here is gold." Before she could ask what he meant, Abu was called away, leaving Adora to ponder his cryptic warning. As the weeks passed, Adora settled into her role, gradually earning the respect of her supervisors for her thoroughness and reliability. She continued to use the multiplying coins for acts of kindness, paying school fees for neighborhood children, buying medicine for the sick, sharing food with those in need. Each time, the coins returned multiplied, though she was careful now to keep them well hidden. What she didn't realize was that she was being watched. The restaurant security cameras tracked her movements. Her conversations were noted by staff who reported to management. Even her activities outside work were observed by individuals who kept a discreet distance. Most intriguing to her unseen observers was that Adora seemed oblivious to the attention. Unlike other staff who tried to impress the management or curry favor, she simply did her job with quiet dignity, neither seeking recognition nor avoiding responsibility. 1 month into her employment, Adora was assigned to help prepare the private dining room for an exclusive event, a feast for the city's most influential business leaders, hosted by the mysterious Mr. Adeyemi himself. "No one has actually seen him," whispered Ngozi, another cleaner, as they arranged fresh flowers on the tables. "They say he watches everything through hidden cameras, and if he doesn't like what he sees, you're fired on the spot." "That can't be true," Adora replied, though the idea sent a small shiver down her spine. "It is." Kemi from the kitchen said her cousin's friend was fired for using the wrong spoon to stir soup. Before Adora could point out how ridiculous that sounded, Mr. Obi entered the room, accompanied by a slim, middle-aged man in a simple but perfectly tailored suit. Unlike the flashy attire favored by many wealthy Lagosians, this man's clothing spoke of understated elegance. His only adornment was a small gold pin on his lapel. "Everything must be perfect," Mr. Obi was saying. "Mr. Adeyemi expects." He stopped abruptly upon noticing the cleaners. "Back to work. The guests arrive in 2 hours." As Adora returned to arranging flowers, she felt the stranger's gaze upon her. Looking up, she met his eyes, sharp, intelligent, and somehow familiar. He studied her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable, yet there was something in his expression that wasn't threatening, but rather curious, expectant, even. The man turned to Mr. Obi and whispered something. The manager's eyes widened slightly before he nodded and hurried away, leaving the stranger alone in the room with the cleaners. To Adora's surprise, he approached her table. "Those arrangements are particularly beautiful," he said, his voice gentle but authoritative. "Thank you, sir," Adora replied, uncertain why such an important person would comment on her work. "You have an eye for balance and harmony," he continued, studying the flowers. "Where did you learn the skill?" "My mother, sir, she loved flowers. We couldn't afford to buy them, but she would gather wildflowers and arrange them in our home." The man nodded, as if confirming something to himself. Mothers teach us our most valuable lessons, don't they? Mine taught me that true value isn't found in things, but in hearts. He smiled briefly. Carry on with your good work, Adora. Only after he had left did Adora realize he had called her by name, though she wasn't wearing her name badge. Before she could ponder this oddity, Ngozi rushed over, eyes wide. Do you know who that was? She hissed. That was Mr. Damola, Mr. Adeyemi's right-hand man. No one speaks to him unless spoken to, and he never speaks to cleaning staff. The mysterious encounter left Adora unsettled for the remainder of her shift. There was something about Mr. Damola that nagged at her memory, though she was certain they had never met before. That evening, after the VIP guests had departed and the restaurant was being prepared for closure, Adora was assigned to help clear the private dining room. The feast had been extravagant. Multiple courses of gourmet dishes prepared by the restaurant's renowned chef. Despite the small army of wealthy and powerful guests, enormous quantities of food remained untouched. All this goes to waste, sighed Abu as they loaded trays of barely touched delicacies onto carts. Enough to feed a village, thrown into bins while children go hungry. Adora looked at the food. Succulent fish still steaming, fragrant jollof rice with saffron and spices, tender vegetables and delicate sauces. An idea formed in her mind, dangerous but compelling. What if, she began hesitantly, what if not all of it went to waste? Abu glanced around nervously. Be careful, child. Such thoughts are forbidden here. Everything must be accounted for. But no one will eat it, and I know people who haven't had a proper meal in weeks. The old man's weathered face softened. I see nothing, he said simply, turning away to polish a table that was already spotless. With her heart pounding, Adora carefully wrapped several portions of food in clean napkins, tucking them into a canvas bag she used for her work shoes. It wasn't stealing, she reasoned. The food was destined for garbage. Surely even Mr. Adeyemi wouldn't object to feeding the hungry rather than filling the dumpsters. After her shift ended, instead of going directly home, she made a detour to the area under the market bridge. The children were huddled together against the evening chill, their faces lighting up at the sight of her. I brought something special, she said, unwrapping the feast fit for dignitaries. The children's eyes widened at the unfamiliar delicacies, their small hands reaching eagerly but politely, as they ate with evident delight. Adora felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the coins in her pocket. This, she thought, was wealth that mattered, the ability to bring joy to others, to ease suffering, to share what one had. She was so absorbed in the children's happiness that she didn't notice the dark sedan parked a discreet distance away, or the figure watching her through its tinted windows. The following evening, Adora again carefully salvaged leftover food, and the evening after that. Each time, she found hungry people eager for the nourishment, an elderly couple too proud to beg, a young mother with twin infants, day laborers too exhausted to cook after grueling shifts. On the fifth night, as she was wrapping a particularly succulent piece of grilled fish, the private dining room door opened. Adora froze, her hand still holding the napkin-wrapped bundle. Mr. Obi stood in the doorway, his face thunderous. Behind him loomed two security guards. So the inventory discrepancies have an explanation after all, he said coldly. Theft. In Mr. Adeyemi's own restaurant. Sir, it's not theft, Adora began desperately. This food was going to be thrown away. Silence. Mr. Obi cut her off. All leftover food is property of the restaurant until disposed of according to policy. You have violated that policy and broken Mr. Adeyemi's trust. He snapped his fingers, and the guard stepped forward to take the canvas bag containing the wrapped food. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately. Return your uniform before leaving. You will not receive your final pay as compensation for the items you have stolen. Please, Mr. Obi, Adora pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. The children are not Mr. Adeyemi's concern, nor are they yours while on company time. Escort her out, he ordered the guards. As they led her through the kitchen toward the staff exit, Adora caught glimpses of her colleagues, some looking away in embarrassment, others watching with sympathy or shock. Abu stood near the dish station, his ancient eyes filled with sadness. He touched his heart as she passed, a gesture of solidarity that only made her tears flow faster. Outside, in the warm evening air, Adora stood in stunned silence as the door closed firmly behind her. In just moments, she had lost her job, her income, and her ability to help those who had come to depend on her. The unfairness of it burned in her chest. All she had done was prevent good food from being wasted. Food that had brought nourishment and joy to those who needed it most. As she turned to leave, she noticed a figure standing in the shadows near the restaurant's garden wall. Mr. Damola stepped forward, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "Ms. Nwachukwu," he said quietly. "A moment, please." Adora hesitated, wary of further humiliation, but unwilling to be rude. Mr. Obi was doing his job. Mr. Damola continued, his tone neither accusing nor sympathetic. Rules exist for reasons, even if those reasons aren't always apparent. "With respect, sir," Adora replied, finding her voice despite her tears. "Some rules should be questioned when they cause harm. Food that nourishes is better than food that rots." Instead of the rebuke she expected, a small smile touched Mr. Damola's lips. "Indeed." He studied her for a long moment before adding, "Mr. Adeyemi has been watching you, Adora, more closely than you might imagine." A chill ran through her despite the warm night. Had the mysterious owner been monitoring her actions all along? Was this some kind of test she had failed? "Tell him I'm sorry for disappointing him," she said softly, turning to leave. "On the contrary," Mr. Damola replied, "you have confirmed what he suspected. He asks only one thing of you." "What is that?" "That you go home and rest. Tomorrow may bring unexpected developments." Before she could question this cryptic statement, Mr. Damola returned to the restaurant, leaving Adora alone with her confusion and the strange feeling that something significant had just occurred, something beyond her current understanding. Unknown to her, inside the restaurant, in a small office hidden from public view, the man known as Mr. Damola removed his suit jacket and sat heavily in a leather chair. He opened a desk drawer and withdrew a photograph, yellow with age, its edges worn from handling. In it, a young woman smiled beside a market stall laden with fruits, a small girl, perhaps 4 or 5, clutching her skirts. "I found her, Nkem," he whispered to the woman in the photograph. "Your daughter, just as kind as you were." He touched the image gently. "Tomorrow, I fulfill my promise to you at last." Shocking. Adora was fired for feeding the hungry, but the mysterious Mr. Damola hints this isn't the end of her story. Who is this billionaire watching her every move? And why does he have a photograph of her mother? If this emotional tale of kindness and destiny has touched your heart, smash that like button and subscribe to Africantales by Zion. Drop a comment. Was Adora wrong to take the leftover food, or was Mr. Obi too harsh? The next chapter brings an incredible revelation that will leave you in tears. Share this video with someone who believes that good deeds never go unrewarded. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the moment when Adora discovers her true connection to the mysterious restaurant owner. Dawn broke over Lagos with the promise of rain. Heavy clouds hung low over the city, and the air felt thick with impending downpour. Adora woke to familiar sound of her neighbor's rooster, but today the crow seemed more like a mockery than a call to work. For the first time in years, she had nowhere to go, no job to hurry to. The reality of her situation settled on her chest like a weight. Fired, with no reference, her reputation likely tarnished among other potential employers in the area. How would she pay her rent? Feed herself? Continue helping the children and others who had come to rely on her kindness? She reached under her pillow for the golden coins, seeking comfort in their familiar warmth. To her surprise, they felt different, heavier, somehow more substantial. When she pulled them out to look, she gasped. The coins had transformed. Where before they had been ancient-looking gold pieces with shifting patterns, they were now gleaming medallions, each engraved with an intricate design, a hand offering a loaf of bread to a kneeling figure. On the reverse side, in flowing script, were the words, "Kindness freely given returns 1,000-fold." As she stared at the changed medallions, a knock came at her door, gentle but insistent. Adora quickly tucked the coins away and smoothed her nightdress before opening the door cautiously. A young woman in a crisp uniform stood outside, her posture formal but her smile friendly. Behind her, parked at the narrow street's edge, was a sleek black car with tinted windows. "Ms. Adora Nwachuku?" the woman asked. "Yes," Adora replied, anxiety creeping into her voice. Had her taking the restaurant's food been reported to authorities? "I'm Stella, personal assistant to Mr. Tund Adeyemi." She handed Adora an envelope sealed with gold wax. "He requests the honor of your presence this morning." Adora accepted the envelope with trembling fingers. "Mr. Adeyemi wants to see me? Why?" "All will be explained when you meet him." Stella gestured toward the waiting car. "The vehicle will take you to him whenever you're ready. Please dress comfortably." "Now, but Adora looked down at her simple nightdress, then back at the elegant assistant and luxury car. The contrast between their worlds could not have been more stark. "Take your time," Stella assured her. "I'll wait outside." After the assistant had withdrawn, Adora opened the envelope. Inside was a card of heavy cream paper, the message written in elegant script. "Ms. Nwachuku, your presence is requested at the Haven, 10 Admiralty Way, Lekki Phase 1, at your earliest convenience today. A matter of mutual importance awaits discussion. With respect, Tund Adeyemi." Adora read the card 3 times, trying to make sense of it. Why would one of Nigeria's wealthiest businessmen want to meet with a former dishwasher and cleaner? Was this about the food she had taken? If so, why not simply report her to the police? With no answers forthcoming from the elegant card, Adora decided that facing whatever awaited her was better than wondering. She quickly washed and dressed in her best outfit. The same blue dress she had worn to her job interview, now freshly pressed despite its worn edges. As an afterthought, she placed the transformed medallions in her pocket. They seemed connected to all the strange events of recent weeks, and having them close gave her courage. Outside, Stella waited patiently beside the car. The driver, a stoic man in a dark suit, opened the rear door as Adora approached. "Ready, Ms. Nwachuku?" Stella asked. Adora nodded, though ready was far from what she felt as she slid into the luxurious vehicle. The leather seats were softer than any chair she ever sat in, and the interior smelled of polish and expensive cologne. As the car pulled away, she caught glimpses of neighbors peering from windows and doorways, their expressions ranging from curious to envious. The journey took them through increasingly affluent neighborhoods, from the crowded streets of Adaora's area to the wide, tree-lined avenues of Lagos Island, and finally to the exclusive enclave of Lekki Phase 1, where mansions stood behind high walls and security gates. The Haven, when they reached it, was aptly named, a sprawling estate surrounded by lush gardens, its white walls gleaming against the dark sky. Armed guards nodded respectfully as the car passed through the imposing gates. "Mr. Adeyemi values his privacy," Stella explained as they followed a curved driveway toward the main house. "Few people are ever invited here." This did nothing to calm Adaora's nerves. If anything, the exclusivity of the invitation made her more anxious about its purpose. The car stopped before an elegant portico. As Adora stepped out, rain began to fall, gentle at first, then quickly intensify into the downpour that had threatened all morning. Stella led her swiftly inside, where a butler waited to take the umbrella the driver had hastily provided. "This way, please," Stella directed, guiding Adora through a grand foyer adorned with artwork and fresh flowers. The marble floors gleamed beneath their feet, and vaulted ceilings soared overhead. It was like entering another world, one of wealth beyond Adaora's imagination. They passed through several rooms, each more impressive than the last, until they reached a set of double doors made of intricately carved wood. Stella knocked softly before opening them. "Ms. Nwachuku is here, sir." "Thank you, Stella. Please show her in." The voice from within was familiar, the same gentle but authoritative tone Adora had heard at the restaurant. As she entered the room, her suspicions were confirmed. Mr. Damola stood by a large window overlooking the rain-drenched gardens, his back to the door. "Mr. Damola," Adora began, confusion evident in her voice. "I was told Mr. Adeyemi wanted to see me." The man turned, a small smile playing at his lips. I am Tandadiyemi. Mr. Demola is a name I use when I wish to move through the world unrecognized. Adora stared, trying to reconcile this information. You own the restaurant? I own many restaurants, he replied, gesturing for her to take a seat in one of two comfortable chairs positioned before a low table. Please sit. We have much to discuss. As Adora sat, still stunned by the revelation, Tandadiyemi joined her in the adjacent chair. Up close, she could study his face properly for the first time. He was perhaps in his early 60s, his close-cropped hair showing distinguished touches of gray. His features were strong but kind, with lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often, though perhaps not recently. You must be wondering why I brought you here, he began. Yes, sir, Adora admitted, if it's about the food I took. He raised a hand to stop her. It's not about the food, though that instant revealed exactly what I had hoped to see. Before Adora could question this cryptic statement, a maid entered with a tray bearing tea and small pastries. The simple act of being served, she would always serve others, felt strange to Adora. When they were alone again, Tun continued, Tell me about your mother, Adora. The unexpected question caught her off guard. My mother? She died 3 years ago. An accident. She was kind and hard-working. She sold fruits at a Cajun market before. Her name was Nkem, Tun said softly. It wasn't a question. Adora's breath caught. How did you know that? In response, Tun reached into his jacket and withdrew a photograph, worn and yellow with age. He handed it to Adora, whose hands trembled as she took it. The image showed a young woman standing proudly beside a market stall laden with fruits. Her smile was bright, her eyes filled with life and determination. Beside her, clutching her skirts, stood a small girl, perhaps 4 or 5. Unmistakably a younger version of Adora herself. This photograph was taken 20 years ago, Tun explained, his voice growing softer. I've carried it with me ever since. I don't understand, Adora whispered, staring at the image of her mother in her prime. Why would you have this? Tun's eyes grew distant, as if looking into the past. 20 years ago, I was not the man you see before you. I was broke, desperate, recently returned from abroad where my business ventures had failed spectacularly. I had nothing, no money, no prospects, no hope. He rose and walked to a cabinet, from which he withdrew a simple wooden box. Returning to his seat, he opened it to reveal an old, threadbare shirt and pants, carefully preserved. One day, I was wandering through a Cajun market, so hungry I could barely stand. I collapsed near a fruit stall. The owner, your mother, brought me water, then food. She didn't know me, had no reason to help me, but she did. Adora's heart began to race as connections formed in her mind. You were? She began, but couldn't finish the thought. I was the hungry stranger your mother fed, he confirmed. Just as you were the kind girl who fed me at Mama Chica's eatery. The room seemed to spin around Adora. The old man at the eatery, that was you? Tun nodded. A disguise, yes. I've become rather skilled at them over the years. He leaned forward, his eyes intent on her face. Do you understand what I'm telling you, Adora? History repeated itself. Mother and daughter, 20 years apart, both choosing kindness when it would have been easier not to. Tears welled in Adora's eyes as a magnitude of the coincidence, or was it destiny? Washed over her. My mother helped you, and then you became. She gestured at their opulent surroundings. Your mother did more than help me, Tun said. She saved my life. After feeding me, she offered me a place to sleep, a small storage room behind her stall. For 2 weeks. She allowed me to stay there while I regained my strength and found work unloading delivery trucks. She even lent me money to buy decent clothes for job interviews. He reached into the wooden box again and withdrew something small and golden, a coin identical to one the old man had first given Adora. I promised her I would repay her kindness someday. But by the time I had achieved enough success to do so, she had moved from her usual spot in the market. For years, I searched for her, but Lagos is a vast city of constant change. People come and go, names change, memories fade. She married my father and moved to another part of the city, Adora explained, the pieces falling into place. We only returned to Acadia after he died. Tun nodded sadly. By then, I was living abroad again, building my restaurant empire in Europe and America. It was only when I returned to Nigeria 5 years ago that I resumed my search. When I learned of her passing, I felt I had failed in my promise. He looked at Adora, his expression softening. Then, while planning the opening of my newest restaurant, I heard stories of a dishwasher at a nearby eatery who was strangely generous despite her poverty. A girl who gave her meal to a hungry stranger. So you disguised yourself to test me? Adora asked, uncertain whether to feel manipulated or amazed. To find you, Tun corrected gently. To see if Nkem's daughter had inherited her heart. The moment you knelt beside me and offered your food, your only meal of the day, I knew you had. He gestured to the medallions in Adaora's pocket, which had begun to glow softly through the fabric of her dress. Those were a test of sorts. Yes. Ancient coins of my collection, infused with small enchantment by a wise woman I met in my travels. They multiply only for those whose generosity is genuine, whose giving comes from the heart rather than calculation. Adora withdrew the medallions, watching as they glowed more brightly in her palm. Why did they change? Because their purpose is fulfilled. They reveal what I needed to know, that you are truly your mother's daughter. Tun's face grew solemn. Adora, I owe your mother a debt I can never fully repay. But perhaps I can honor her memory by helping her daughter. Sir, I don't need... This isn't charity, he interrupted firmly. It's a fulfillment of a promise made to a woman who saved me when no one else would. A promise I've carried for 20 years. He paused, studying her face. Unless, of course, you would rather make your own way. That choice is entirely yours, and I would respect it. The rain had intensified outside, drumming against the windows like 1,000 tiny fingers. In that moment of decision, Adora thought of her mother, her strength, her kindness, her belief that good deeds created ripples that eventually returned to their source. What are you offering exactly? She asked cautiously. Tun smiled, the expression warming his entire face. I'm establishing a foundation, the House of Mercy, to provide food, education, and opportunity to street children and others in need. I had planned to name it after your mother, but without her family's blessing, it didn't seem right. And now, Adora prompted when he paused, now I'd like to offer you the position of directing this foundation, not because you are Nkem's daughter, but because you have proven yourself to have exactly the heart needed for such work. Your actions at the restaurant, taking food that would be wasted to feed the hungry, showed me that you understand the true meaning of compassion. Adora sat in stunned silence, trying to process the offer. From dishwasher to director of a charitable foundation, it seemed impossible, like something from a dream or a tale told to children. I don't have the education for such a position, she finally said. I never even finished secondary school. Education can be acquired, Tun replied dismissively. Heart cannot. Besides, you have already demonstrated more practical wisdom in your actions than many highly educated executives I've employed. He leaned forward earnestly. Think of the children you've been helping with leftover food and coins. Imagine what you could do with proper resources, not just feeding them for a day, but changing their lives permanently. The vision he painted was compelling, a place where the hungry were fed, where orphans found care, where the desperate found hope. It was everything Adaora's mother would have created had she possessed the means. If I accept, she said slowly, I would need to do things my own way, not just giving handouts, but helping people find dignity through work and education, like my mother did for you. Tun's smile widened. I would expect nothing less. The foundation will have my financial backing, but its heart and direction will be yours. Outside, as if reflecting the moment, the rain began to ease. Sunlight broke through the clouds, casting golden rays across the sodden garden. There's one more thing, Tund added, reaching into his pocket. This belongs to you now. He held out a small key. It's to your new home, a modest apartment near the foundation's office. Nothing extravagant, but safe and comfortable. Adora stared at the key, overwhelmed by the rapid changes in her fortune. Yesterday, She had been fired and facing destitution. Today, she was being offered purpose, security, and a chance to help others on a scale she had never imagined possible. "This is too much," she whispered. "No," Tun replied firmly. "It's exactly enough. Your mother gave me shelter when I had nowhere to go. This is simply the completion of a circle that began 20 years ago." As they sat in the elegant room with rain-washed sunlight streaming through the windows, Adora thought of all the people who had touched her life. Her mother with her unwavering kindness, the children under the bridge with their resilient spirits, even Mama Chica with her harsh lessons in survival. And now this man, this billionaire who had disguised himself as a beggar to find the daughter of the woman who had once saved him. "I accept," she said finally, her voice steady with newfound purpose. "For my mother, for the children, and for all those who need more than just a meal but a chance." Tund extended his hand, and as Adora took it, the medallions in her pocket flared with brilliant light, as if sealing a covenant between past and future, between a promise made and a promise fulfilled. "Welcome to your new beginning, Adora and Wachuku," Tund said, his eyes bright with emotion. "Your mother will be proud." Incredible. Tund Adeyemi was the hungry stranger Adora fed, and the man her mother helped 20 years ago. What an amazing revelation of destiny's perfect circle. If this powerful story of kindness returning multiplied has touched your soul, smash that like button and subscribe to Africantales by Zion. Drop a comment. Do you believe good deeds always find their way back to us? The final chapter shows how Adora transforms lives with her new position, and you'll need tissues for the emotional ending. Share this video with someone whose kindness deserves recognition. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the beautiful conclusion to this tale that proves no act of compassion is ever wasted. 1 year later, the grand opening of Adeora's table drew a crowd that stretched around the block. The restaurant, once Adeyemi's place, had been completely transformed, both in appearance and purpose. Gone were the crystal chandeliers and gold-embossed menus. In their place were warm, welcoming lights and simple wooden tables arranged to encourage community rather than exclusivity. The aroma of traditional Nigerian dishes filled the air as Adora moved through the space, greeting guests and ensuring everything was perfect for the special day. She wore a beautiful Ankara dress in vibrant blues and golds, designed and sewn by young women from the Foundation Skills Training Program. Her hair was styled in neat braids crowned with matching head wrap, and around her neck hung a simple gold pendant, a miniature version of the medallions that had changed her life. "Is everything ready in the kitchen?" she asked Abu, who had left his position at the luxury restaurant to join her venture as head of kitchen operations. The older man's weathered face creased into a smile. "Perfect, my daughter. The children are nervous but ready." Behind the service counter, 12 teenagers in crisp uniforms waited eagerly. They were the first graduates of the House of Mercy's culinary training program, former street children who had been given not just food and shelter, but education, skills, and purpose. "Remember," Adora told them, "today we don't just serve food. We serve dignity, hope, and second chances. Every plate that leaves this kitchen carries your story." The young people nodded solemnly, though excitement shone in their eyes. For many, this was their first experience of achievement, of being valued for their abilities rather than pitted for their circumstances. At precisely noon, Adora opened the doors. The crowd surged forward, some wealthy patrons curious about the restaurant's transformation, others from a community eager to support the new venture, and many who had heard the remarkable story of the dishwasher who became a humanitarian. The unique concept of Adeora's table quickly became apparent. Half the tables were reserved for paying customers, who would enjoy excellent food at reasonable prices. The other half, marked with small golden medallions, were for those who couldn't afford to pay. Anyone could come in, sit at a medallion table, and receive the same quality meal and service as paying guests at no cost. "It's a beautiful idea," commented a well-dressed woman as Adora showed her to a table. "But surely it's not sustainable as a business model." "It's not meant to be just a business," Adora explained with a warm smile. "It's a bridge between two worlds that rarely meet. The restaurant is supported by the House of Mercy Foundation, and all profits go back into our programs." As the dining room filled with a diverse mix of Lagos society, business people alongside day laborers, wealthy matrons beside young mothers with children. Adora felt a surge of pride. This was exactly the vision she had shared with Tund Adeyemi during their many planning sessions, a place where wealth and poverty could sit side by side, where generosity flowed naturally, where dignity was served alongside jollof rice and egusi soup. Speaking of Tund, where was he? The billionaire had promised to attend the opening, but as the afternoon progressed, there was no sign of him. Adora tried not to feel disappointed. He was a busy man with global interests, and he had already given her more support than she could have imagined. As she supervised the dining room, Adora noticed a commotion near the entrance. A disheveled woman had entered and was arguing with the host. With a shock, Adora recognized her former employer, Mama Chica. "I told you I have no money," Mama Chica was saying, her once imposing figure now diminished, her clothes worn and faded. "I heard anyone can eat here, even without payment." "That's correct," the young host replied, clearly uncomfortable with the woman's aggressive tone. "But there's a short wait for the community tables." "I've been waiting all my life," Mama Chica snapped. "I lost my business, my home, everything. Now you tell me to wait longer?" Adora stepped forward. "It's all right, Ifioma," she told the host, using the young woman's name deliberately. "I'll handle this." Mama Chica's eyes widened in recognition, then narrowed with a mixture of shame and defiance. "So," she said flatly, "the dishwasher becomes the owner. Have you come to gloat, Adora?" "No, Mama," Adora replied softly. "I've come to seat you at the best table in the house." She led the confused woman to a quiet corner near the window, where fresh flowers adorned a table set with a golden medallion. As Mama Chica sat, looking wary and suspicious, Adora signaled to one of the servers. "What happened to your eatery?" Adora asked gently. Mama Chica's face hardened. "After you left, business declined. People said I was too harsh, my food too expensive. Then the new development came, raising rents. I couldn't keep up." She looked down at her hands, rough from years of work, now reduced to begging. "I never thought I would be the hungry one." Adora felt no satisfaction at her former employer's downfall, only compassion. "Everyone is hungry sometimes, Mama. Everyone needs help." "I was not kind to you," Mama Chica admitted, an unprecedented vulnerability in her voice. "No," Adora agreed, "but kindness isn't earned. It's given freely, or it isn't kindness at all." The server arrived with a steaming plate of Mama Chica's favorite dish, ayame stew with fresh fish, prepared exactly as the woman used to make it in her own eatery. Tears sprang to Mama Chica's eyes at the sight and smell of the familiar food. "How did you know?" she whispered. "I paid attention," Adora said simply, "even when you didn't notice." As Mama Chica began to eat, Adora left her to enjoy the meal in peace. There would be time later to discuss how the older woman might find work at one of the Foundation's programs, perhaps teaching cooking to the next generation of culinary students. For now, it was enough that she had food, dignity, and the chance to experience the kindness she had so often withheld from others. The afternoon proceeded smoothly, with the young staff growing more confident as they served plate after plate of delicious food. The paying customers were generous with both compliments and tips, which would be shared equally among the staff. The non-paying guests received the same attention and quality, many of them visibly moved by the experience of being served with respect rather than pity. As the initial rush subsided, Adora finally took a moment to herself, stepping out to the small courtyard garden behind the restaurant. The space had been redesigned as a quiet oasis, with native plants surrounding a simple fountain. Here, amid the greenery, she could still hear the distant hum of conversation and laughter from inside. The sound of community forming, of barriers breaking down. "You've created something remarkable," said a voice behind her. Adora turned to find Tund Adeyemi standing in the garden entrance, dressed not in his usual business attire, but in the simple garb of an ordinary Lagos elder. Had she passed him on the street, she might not have recognized him. "I thought you weren't coming," she said, unable to hide her pleasure at seeing him, and miss the fulfillment of a 20-year promise. He shook his head, moving to stand beside her at the fountain. "I've been here since the doors opened, though not as Tund Adeyemi." Understanding dawned on Adora. Another disguise? Where were you sitting? His eyes twinkled. At a medallion table, between a construction worker with callous hands and a young mother with twins. The egusi soup was excellent, by the way. Adora laughed, delighted by the image of the billionaire sitting anonymously among those receiving free meals. Why the disguise this time? Tun's expression grew more serious. Because today isn't about me. It's about you, about what you created. And because sometimes the best way to understand the true impact of our work is to experience it from a receiving end. He gestured toward the restaurant, where both paying and non-paying guests continue to share the space in harmony. In all my restaurants around the world, I've never seen what I witnessed today. True communion across the divisions that usually separate us. It's just the beginning, Adora replied, thinking of all the plans still taking shape. The culinary school will accept a new class next month. The community garden starts providing vegetables next week. And we've identified 3 more locations for similar restaurants in other parts of Lagos. All of this from a simple act of sharing food with a hungry stranger. Tun marveled. Your mother would be so proud. At the mention of her mother, Adora touched the pendant at her neck. I feel her presence here. Sometimes I think I can hear her voice guiding me. The wisdom of our ancestors never leaves us, Tun agreed. It flows through our actions, our choices, our legacy. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the fountain's gentle music. Then Tun reached into his pocket and withdrew something small and golden. The final medallion, he said, holding out to her. I've kept it until today, waiting for the right moment. Adora accepted it, feeling its familiar warmth in her palm. Unlike the others, this one bore a new inscription. From one meal shared, 1,000 tables of blessing. It belongs on the wall, she decided, where everyone can see it and understand the power of a single act of kindness. Tun nodded in approval, a reminder that wealth isn't measured in bank accounts, but in lives touched. He glanced at his watch. I should go. There's a board meeting I can't avoid, even today. Will you come back? Adora asked. As yourself next time? Perhaps. His eyes twinkled again. Or perhaps I'll continue to visit in disguise. It's the only way I get honest service these days. As he turned to leave, Adora impulsively reached out to stop him. Thank you, she said simply. Not just for the opportunities, but for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. The billionaire shook his head gently. You had everything you needed already, Adora. The compassion, the wisdom, the determination. I merely provided resources for what was already in your heart. He squeezed her hand briefly. Besides, it is I who should thank you. You reminded an old man that his success means nothing if not shared. With that, he slipped away through a side gate, once again becoming just another face in Lagos' teeming streets. A billionaire disguised as an ordinary elder, carrying the satisfaction of a promise fulfilled. When Adora returned to the dining room, she found it transformed yet again. The afternoon sunlight streamed to the windows, casting a golden glow over the diverse gathering. At one table, a businessman in an expensive suit was deep in conversation with a taxi driver. At another, a group of market women shared a meal with university students. The medallion tables were indistinguishable from the others, dignity flowing as freely as the water served in handmade clay cups. Near the entrance, Adora paused to watch a new group of guests being welcomed. Street children from beneath the market bridge, the same ones she had once fed with leftover food and multiplying coins. They entered hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence, as they were shown the tables set with fresh flowers and clean tableware. Is it really free? One boy asked skeptically. We don't have to pay or work. It's really free, confirmed the young host, herself once a street child. Everyone deserved a place at the table. Adora's heart swelled as she watched the children settle into their chairs, their faces lighting up as servers brought them not leftovers or scraps, but fresh, hot food prepared with care and served with respect. This, she thought, was true wealth. Not the luxury she had glimpsed at Adiemi's place, but the abundance that flows when giving becomes a way of life rather than an occasional gesture. As the day drew to a close, Adora gathered her staff, the young culinary graduates, The experienced mentors like Abu, the administrators and servers who kept everything running smoothly. They formed a circle in the now-empty dining room, tired but exhilarated by the successful opening. "Today," she told them, "we didn't just serve food. We served hope, dignity, and the belief that everyone deserves a place at the table. Remember this feeling, because this is why we do what we do." She led them to the wall near the entrance, where a simple wooden plaque had been installed. On it, mounted in a place of honor, was a final medallion Tund had given her, its golden surface catching the last rays of afternoon sun. Below it, carved into the wood, were the words that summed up everything Adora had learned from her mother, from her experiences, and from the strange journey that had brought her from dishwasher to director. "Blessed are the kind-hearted, for they shall dine with kings." As her staff dispersed to prepare for the next day, Adora remained for a moment before the plaque, thinking of all the hands that had led her to this moment. Her mother's hands teaching her to share even when they had little, Mama Chica's hands driving her to work harder, the children's small hands accepting food with gratitude, and finally, Tund Adeyemi's hands returning a kindness multiplied 1,000-fold. Outside, Lagos continued its endless rhythm, a city of stark contrasts and boundless possibilities. But inside Adora's table, a new rhythm had begun, one of giving and receiving, of dignity restored, of kindness freely offered and joyfully multiplied. And at the center of it all stood Adora Nwachukwu, no longer the girl with the broken plate, but a woman who had learned that the truest feast is one where all are welcome and no one leaves hungry, for food, for respect, or for hope. What a beautiful ending to our incredible story. From humble dishwasher to director of foundation, Adora's journey proves that kindness is the greatest wealth we can possess. If this tale of compassion returned multiplied has touched your heart, smash that like button and subscribe to African Tales by Zion. Drop a comment sharing your favorite moment from Adora's journey. Was it when she first helped a hungry stranger? When she discovered Tund's true identity? Or when she welcomed Mama Chica with forgiveness and grace? Remember, a single act of kindness can create ripples that transform lives for generations. True riches aren't measured in money, but in the hearts we touch and the lives we change. Share this video with someone whose kindness deserves recognition. Turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful African tale that reminds us of the wisdom our ancestors have always known, that in giving, we receive the greatest blessing of all. African Tales by Zion, where stories touch hearts, teach wisdom, and inspire kindness in a world that needs it more than ever.